My mother-in-law slammed her wine glass on the marble table so hard I thought it would shatter. The sound echoed through the dining room like a crack of thunder. "Enough, Maya," she hissed, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at me like a weapon. "Nobody wants to hear your opinions. You're just here because you married my son. So finish your food and disappear upstairs where you belong." The crystal chandelier above us seemed to dim. My husband, Arjun, didn't even look up from his phone. His sister, Kavya, smirked behind her napkin, clearly enjoying the show. My nephew, Rohan, barely 16, snickered as he scrolled through his social media, probably texting his friends about how his aunt was being humiliated at the family dinner table. I am Maya Sharma. I'm 38 years old, and for the last 7 years, I have been invisible in my own life. But let me take you back to the beginning. Before this moment, before I became a ghost in a mansion I helped build. Before I continue, I want to know where you're listening from. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. My name is Naya Sharma. But everyone in this house calls me whatever they need me to be at that moment. Cook, maid, ATM, punching bag. I'm 38 years old, a software architect who built security systems for Fortune 500 companies. I earned my first million before I turned 30. I bought this penthouse in Mumbai's Bandra West with my own money, paid in full, no mortgage. The deed has my name on it, but for the last 7 years, I've watched my sanctuary become a prison. I've watched my achievements become invisible. I've watched my voice become unwanted noise in rooms I paid for. That afternoon, I sat in my home office, the only room they haven't invaded yet, staring at a bank statement that made my stomach turn. My credit card bill showed 72,000 rupees. The charges read like a catalog of someone else's vanity. Luxury spa packages at the Taj, designer handbags from Hermes, premium gym memberships, a weekend retreat in Goa for my mother-in-law and her friends. I picked up my fountain pen, the Mont Blanc that my late father gave me when I got my first promotion. He told me, "Maya, never let anyone make you small. You were born to take up space." I wish he could see me now. Actually, I'm glad he can't. I signed a check for 18,000 rupees to a catering company called Royal Feast. This was for tonight's dinner party. My mother-in-law, Sudha Malhotra, wanted to impress her kiddie party friends. She told me it was my contribution to household expenses. Household expenses in a house I own, maintained by money I earn. I placed the check in an envelope and looked around my office. The glass walls overlooked the Arabian Sea. The sunset was painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. This view cost me 12 years of 16-hour workdays, countless missed weekends, and a youth spent building systems instead of relationships. But it was mine. Every square foot of this 3,000 square foot penthouse was bought with my sweat and my code. 3 years ago, everything changed. Arjun's mother moved in, claiming she needed family support after her husband passed away. I understood grief. I welcomed her with open arms. 2 months later, Arjun's sister Kavya showed up with her teenage son Rohan, fresh from a messy divorce. She needed a place to get back on her feet. I said yes, because family helps family, right? I was a fool. Within 6 months, they had reorganized my entire life. Sudha declared that the master bedroom with the ocean view should be hers, because she had back problems and needed the morning sun. She said my room, the one I designed with a reading nook and a walk-in closet, was too much space for just a working woman. They moved my belongings to the guest room, the small one at the end of the hallway next to the service elevator. The room that was supposed to be for visitors became my permanent residence. The master suite where I planned to start a family became Sudha's kingdom. I let it happen. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was being kind. I told myself that's what good daughters-in-law do. I was lying to myself. I checked my watch. It was 6:30. The caterers would arrive at 7. I could hear Sudha barking orders at the housekeeping staff. She treats them like they're beneath her, which is ironic considering I pay their salaries. Every word of disrespect toward them feels like a personal insult, but I've learned to swallow my objections. Objections lead to lectures about respecting elders, about knowing my place, about being grateful I married into a good family. Good family. My husband's family hasn't earned a rupee in 3 years. Arjun calls himself an entrepreneur. In the 7 years we've been married, he's started 5 companies. All of them tanked. I funded every single venture. Last month, he asked for 2 million rupees for a crypto trading platform. I refused. He hasn't spoken to me properly since. He walks past me like I'm furniture, useful but unworthy of acknowledgement. I stood up and smoothed my sari. I still dress well for these dinners. Dignity is a discipline, something my father taught me. I walked out of my office and through the hallway lined with family photos. Most of them feature Arjun's family. There's barely any evidence that I live here. My awards, my certificates, my achievements are all boxed up in storage because Sudha said they made the house look too corporate. I entered the kitchen. The smell of biryani filled the air, rich with saffron and cardamom. The caterers were arranging food in expensive serving dishes. Sudha was there, inspecting everything with the critical eye of someone who never cooked a meal in her life. She looked at me, her gaze sharp and evaluating. Maya, try not to talk too much tonight. My friends are educated people. They don't need to hear about computer programming and all that technical nonsense you do. Just serve the food, smile, and let the adults have their conversation. I was 10 years older than Kavya. I had a master's degree in computer science from IIT Delhi. I had built security systems that protected banks and hospitals. But in this house, I was the child who needed to be managed. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. I walked into the dining room, where the table was set with china that belonged to my grandmother. Arjun was already seated, pouring himself a glass of the aged scotch I'd been saving for something special. He didn't ask if I wanted any. He never does. He filled his glass to the brim and took a long drink. Kavya swept into the room wearing a designer sari that cost more than most people's monthly salary. I know because I saw the charge on my credit card. She didn't ask to borrow it. She just took it, like she takes everything else. Rohan slouched in his chair, AirPods in his ears, TikTok videos playing loud enough for me to hear the tinny music. Rohan, take those out, Kavya snapped, but her voice held no real authority. The boy rolled his eyes but removed one earbud, leaving the other in place. The guests arrived in waves of expensive perfume and fake laughter. Sudha's friends, women who measured worth in jewelry and gossip. They air-kissed and complimented each other's outfits while making mental notes of who wore what and how much it cost. I served the appetizers, moving through the room like a shadow. No one acknowledged me except to hand me their empty plates. I was the help, in my own home, with my own money, serving people who contributed nothing. Dinner was the usual performance. Sudha held court, telling stories about Arjun's childhood, about how brilliant he was, how he could have been anything he wanted. The subtext was always clear, until he married me and I somehow dimmed his shine. Arjun played his part, the devoted son, nodding and laughing at appropriate moments. He looked successful in his tailored shirt and expensive watch, both bought with my money. No one at this table knew the truth. No one knew he was a kept man living off his wife's success. And then Sudha made her announcement. We're planning a family vacation to Switzerland next month. First-class tickets, 5-star hotels. Maya will handle the arrangements and the costs, of course. It's the least she can do after all we've sacrificed to make this house a home. Sacrificed. The word hung in the air like poison. They had sacrificed nothing. They had taken everything. My space, my peace, my money, my dignity. One of Sudha's friends, a woman dripping in diamonds, turned to me. You're so lucky, Maya, to have such a close-knit family, and so generous of you to take care of everyone. Lucky, generous. The words tasted like ash. I was about to respond when Priya, the young woman who helps with housekeeping, came in to refill water glasses. She's been with me since I bought this penthouse. She knew me before Arjun, before his family invaded. She's the only person in this house who still treats me like a human being. Her hand trembled slightly as she poured water into Rohan's glass. A few drops spilled onto the white tablecloth. It was barely noticeable, just a small wet spot. "Are you blind?" Rohan snapped, his voice dripping with contempt. "Look what you did. Can't you do anything right?" He shoved his glass toward her, sloshing more water onto her uniform. Priya flinched, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll clean it immediately." "Don't bother," Rohan said, his voice cruel in a way only entitled teenagers can manage. "Just get away from me. You're completely useless." Something inside me broke. It was a clean break, like a bone snapping. No pain at first, just clarity. I set down my fork carefully. The sound of metal on china rang through the suddenly quiet room. "Apologize to her, Rohan." My voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes before storms. Rohan looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "What?" "You heard me. You were rude. Priya is a person who deserves respect. Apologize to her right now." Rohan laughed. It was a short, ugly sound. "She's the maid, Auntie. That's what she's paid for, to clean up when she messes up." "She's not a maid," I said, my voice rising slightly. "She's a human being who works hard, and you're a spoiled child who's never earned anything in his life." The room went silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Somewhere in the distance a car horn honked. Kavya's face turned red. "Maya, don't you dare speak to my son that way." I turned to face her. "Then teach him not to treat people like garbage. Or is that the family value we're passing down? Disrespect anyone who can't fight back?" Sudha's chair scraped against the floor as she stood up. Her face was twisted with rage. But before she could speak, Arjun slammed his hand on the table. The dishes rattled. "Maya, that's enough," he said, his voice cold. "You're embarrassing us in front of Mother's friends. Apologize." I looked at my husband, the man I'd loved enough to marry, the man I'd supported through every failure, the man who was now asking me to apologize for defending basic human dignity. "No," I said simply. Sudha's voice cracked like a whip. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you? We gave up our comfortable lives to live in this house, to help you manage since you're so busy with your precious job. We adjusted to your rules, your schedule, your limited hosting abilities, and this is how you repay us? By humiliating us?" The words hit me like physical blows. Gave up their comfortable lives, adjusted to my rules, my limited abilities. I looked around the table, at Sudha in her designer saree bought with my credit card, at Kavya wearing jewelry I'd never wear because I was too busy working, at Rohan with his iPhone and his arrogance, at Arjun and his expensive watch and his empty achievements. And then I looked at Priya, still standing there with the water pitcher, her eyes downcast, trying to make herself invisible. "Get out," Sudha hissed at Priya. "Just leave before you cause more trouble." Priya hurried toward the door, nearly tripping in her haste to escape. That's when it happened. That's when the last thread holding me to this family snapped. Sudha turned her fury fully on me. "And you, Maya, you need to understand something. This is my son's house now. You're here because you're his wife. But if you can't show proper respect, if you can't understand your place, then maybe you should be the one to leave. We don't need your money. We don't need your opinions. We only keep you around because Arjun is too kind to divorce you." The room spun. Her words echoed in my ears. "My son's house. Your place. We only keep you around." I felt something cold wash over me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hurt. It was absolute crystalline clarity. For 7 years, I'd been afraid of being alone. I'd tolerated the theft, the disrespect, the erasure of my identity, because I thought loneliness was the worst possible fate. But looking at these people, these parasites feeding on my success, I realized I was already alone. I'd been alone since the day they moved in. These people weren't my family. They were squatters in my life, and I'd given them the keys. I stood up slowly. I smoothed my sari. I looked at each of them one final time. Sudha with her self-righteous anger. Kavya with her smug entitlement. Rohan with his learned cruelty. And Arjun with his cowardly silence. I didn't say a word. I simply turned and walked out of the dining room. Behind me, I heard Sudha's voice rise in pitch. "Where are you going? Maya, come back here. We're not done talking." I kept walking. Down the hallway. Past the guest room they'd relegated me to. Past the master suite they'd stolen. I went to my office and locked the door behind me. I went to my safe, hidden behind a painting of the Western Ghats my father had given me. I spun the dial. The date I filed my first patent. The heavy door swung open. Inside were my documents, property deed, bank statements, investment portfolios, and a thick blue folder I'd prepared 6 months ago when I first sensed how bad things had become. I called it Plan Phoenix, because sometimes you have to burn everything down to rise again. I took the folder. I took my passport. I took my car keys. I put them all in my leather laptop bag. I looked around my office one last time, at the degrees on the wall, at the awards on the shelf, at the photo of my father on my desk, the only family member who truly believed in me. I took his photo and slipped it into my bag. Everything else could stay. Things are just things. Freedom is everything. I unlocked the door and walked to the foyer. I could hear them in the dining room, their voices raised. They were arguing about me, about what to do with me, as if I were a problem to be solved, rather than a person who'd been solving all their problems. Sudha appeared in the doorway. "Maya, where do you think you're going? It's 9 o'clock. You can't just leave." I looked at her, at this woman who'd made my life hell while living in my house. "Watch me." "If you walk out that door," Sudha threatened, her voice shaking, "don't expect us to let you back in. I'll change all the locks. This is Arjun's house now. You have no claim here." I almost laughed. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the property deed. I held it up so she could see it. "This house is in my name, Sudha. Only my name, and has been for 8 years. You have no claim here." "None of you do." Her face went pale. Clearly, Arjun had never mentioned that small detail. I walked to the door. Arjun appeared from the dining room, his face flushed from the scotch. "Maya, don't be dramatic. Come back inside. We'll talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "I've been talking for 7 years. None of you have been listening." I opened the door. The evening air rushed in, carrying the salt smell of the ocean. Mumbai stretched out below, millions of lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere in that vast city was my future. A future without them. "Maya," Arjun said, his voice taking on a warning tone. "If you leave now, I'll file for divorce. I'll take you to court. I'll make sure everyone knows you abandoned your family." I smiled. It felt strange, smiling. I hadn't done it genuinely in so long. "You do that, Arjun. File for divorce. Please. My lawyer has been waiting for you to make the first move. It'll make everything so much easier." I walked out and closed the door behind me. The sound of it shutting was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The elevator ride down felt like shedding weight with each floor. By the time I reached the parking garage, I felt lighter than I had in years. My Mercedes sat in its spot, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I got in, started the engine, and the purr of German engineering sounded like a promise. I drove up the ramp and onto the street, leaving behind the building that housed 7 years of mistakes. I drove for 40 minutes through Mumbai's nighttime traffic until I reached the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. The doorman recognized me. I'd stayed here before, during the early days when I was traveling for work. "Ms. Sharma," he said, opening my door. "Welcome back. We've missed you." I handed him my keys. "I've missed being here, Rajesh." I walked into the lobby. The marble floors gleamed. The air smelled of jasmine and possibility. I approached the reception desk. The manager, a woman named Priya Desai, smiled at me. "Miss Sharma, what a wonderful surprise. We weren't expecting you." "I need a suite, Priya," I said. "The deluxe one, for an indefinite period." "Of course. The usual preferences?" "Yes, and please send up a bottle of champagne, the good one." "The Bollinger?" "Perfect." I rode the elevator to the 23rd floor. The suite was exactly as I remembered. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gateway of India. Elegant furniture. Space that was mine and mine alone. I stood at the window looking out at the illuminated monument, at the boats bobbing in the harbor, at the city that had given me everything except peace in my own home. My phone started buzzing. 20 missed calls from Arjun. 15 text messages from Sudha. I read them, one after another. "Where are you? This isn't funny. Maya, pick up the phone. Mother is very upset. You're acting like a child. Come home immediately. Arjun is going to call the police. Fine, stay out all night, but you'll regret this." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Advocate Meera Kapoor. She'd been my lawyer and my friend for 15 years. She was the toughest litigator in Mumbai, and she'd been warning me for years that my marriage was toxic. I pressed call. She answered on the second ring. "Maya, it's 10 at night. What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong, Meera," I said. "Everything is finally right." I left. There was a pause. Then Meera let out a low whistle. "About damn time. What happened?" I told her everything. The dinner. The humiliation, Sudha's threats, Arjun's ultimatum. When I finished, Meera was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "So it's time?" "It's time," I confirmed. "Full legal offensive?" she asked. "Everything we discussed. I want them out as my house. I want my assets protected. And I want a divorce that leaves Arjun with exactly what he brought to the marriage, nothing." "Maya," Meera said, her voice serious. "Once we start this, there's no going back. It's going to get ugly. They're going to fight dirty." I looked out at Mumbai, at the city that had made me who I was. Let them fight. I've been fighting alone for 7 years. Now I have the law on my side. I'll file the papers first thing Monday morning, Meera said. Divorce petition, restraining order, and eviction notice. All of them. We're hitting them with everything at once. Do it. "What about tonight? Are you safe? Do you need security?" "I'm at the Taj. I'm perfectly safe." "Good. Try to get some rest, Maya. Monday's going to be intense." I hung up and opened the champagne. The cork popped with a satisfying sound. I poured myself a glass and took a sip. It was crisp and perfect and tasted like freedom. For the first time in 7 years, I slept through the night without waking up. No anxiety about tomorrow's fights. No worry about whose mood I needed to manage. Just deep, peaceful sleep in a bed that was mine alone. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up at 9. In my old life, I would have been up at 6, making breakfast for people who never said thank you. Today, I ordered room service. Masala chai, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, and warm croissants. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. Then I opened my laptop and logged into the security system I'd installed in the penthouse 3 years ago. After money started disappearing from my wallet and my jewelry started vanishing, I'd placed cameras throughout the house. Sudha and Arjun thought they were just for external security. They didn't know I had access to every room. So I pulled up the live feed. The penthouse was in chaos. Sudha was in the kitchen, screaming at someone on the phone. Kavya was pacing in the living room, also on a call. Rohan was in the guest room, my former room, playing video games as if nothing had happened. And Arjun. Arjun was in the study, my study, pulling open drawers and looking through papers. He was searching for something. I knew exactly what. He was looking for my financial documents. He wanted to know what assets I had, what he could claim in a divorce. He wasn't going to find anything. I'd moved all my important papers months ago to a safe deposit box at the bank. The study only contained household bills and grocery receipts. I watched him get more and more frustrated. He threw papers on the floor. He yanked open the filing cabinet so hard it nearly tipped over. His face was red, his movements jerky with desperation. My phone rang. It was Suda. I let it ring. It stopped, then immediately started again. Then Arjun called. Then Kavya. They were taking turns, probably thinking I'd answer if they just kept trying. I didn't answer. I was done being available on their schedule. I was done being their solution to every problem they created. Instead, I called Mira. How fast can you move on Monday? First thing in the morning. The restraining order will be filed by 10. The eviction notice will be served by noon. And the divorce petition will be filed by end of day. What about their response time? They'll have 48 hours to respond to the eviction. The restraining order is immediate if the judge approves it, which they will once they see your documentation. Perfect. I spent the rest of Saturday planning. I made lists. I reviewed documents. I prepared for every possible legal argument Arjun might make. I knew him. He'd claim I was mentally unstable. He'd claim I abandoned the marriage. He'd claim he deserved compensation for emotional distress. He'd claim everything except responsibility for his own failures. Sunday was quiet. I went for a spa treatment at the hotel. I got a massage that worked out 7 years of stress from my shoulders. I sat by the pool and read a book, something I hadn't done in years. Every time my phone rang with their calls, I felt a small spike of satisfaction. They were beginning to understand that I wasn't coming back, that their free ride was over. Sunday evening, I received an email from an unknown address. I opened it cautiously. It was from Arjun's personal email, not his regular one. Maya, I know you're angry. I understand. But we can work this out. Come home. We'll have a family meeting. We'll set new boundaries. Mother has promised to be more respectful. Please, don't throw away 7 years of marriage over one bad dinner. One bad dinner. He reduced 7 years of abuse to one bad dinner, as if it hadn't been 1,000 small cuts, 1,000 tiny deaths of my dignity. I didn't reply, but I forwarded the email to Mira with a note. Evidence of gaslighting, add to file. Monday morning arrived. I woke up early, dressed in my most powerful suit, navy blue with sharp shoulders. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked different. My eyes were clearer. My jaw was set. I looked like the woman I used to be before I met Arjun, before I learned to make myself small. At 9:30, Mira called. The restraining order is filed. We're just waiting for the judge's signature. At 10:15, she called again. It's approved. The order states that Sudha Malhotra, Kavya Malhotra, and Rohan Malhotra must vacate your property within 48 hours. Arjun can stay, but only in the guest room, and he's not allowed to contact you directly. All communication must go through lawyers. At 11, Mira called a third time. The process server is at your building. Are you watching? /PP. I pulled up the security feed on my laptop. I watched as a woman carrying a business suit stepped out of the elevator. She rang the doorbell. Sudha answered. The woman handed her the papers. I watched Sudha's face change as she read. Shock, disbelief, rage. She tried to hand the papers back. The process server said something, probably explaining that refusing service didn't make it invalid. Sudha's mouth opened, screaming words I couldn't hear, but could easily imagine. /P. The server left. Sudha stood in the doorway, holding the papers like they were contaminated. Then she ran inside, presumably to find Arjun. /P. Within minutes, my phone exploded with calls. Sudha, Kavya, Arjun. Numbers I didn't recognize, probably their relatives. I silenced the phone and kept watching. Arjun appeared on the feed, reading the restraining order. His face went through several expressions. Confusion, anger, and then fear. The fear was the most satisfying. He was finally understanding that this wasn't a fight he could win with manipulation or guilt. This was law. This was consequence. I watched Kavya storm into the living room, her face twisted with fury. She was shouting, gesturing wildly. Even without audio, I could read the drama. She was probably telling Arjun this was his fault, that he should have controlled me better, that he was weak for letting his wife walk all over him, The irony was delicious. For 7 years, they'd walked all over me. Now that I'd stood up, I was the villain. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Maya, this is Suda. Since you've blocked our numbers, I'm using a friend's phone. I want you to know what you're doing is wrong. We are family. Family doesn't abandon family. Your father would be ashamed of you. You're destroying this family over your ego. Come home and we can fix this. But if you continue this legal nonsense, you'll regret it. We have connections. We have lawyers. We will make sure you lose everything. This is your last warning. I read it twice. Then I screenshot it and sent it to Mira with a message. Exhibit B, threats and intimidation. Mira replied immediately. Perfect. This actually helps our case. Keep any threatening messages. Don't respond. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began the next phase of my plan. I logged into my bank accounts. Over the years, Arjun had been listed as a joint holder on one checking account, the household account I used for daily expenses. He had access to about 3 lakh rupees in that account. What he didn't know was that I had 7 other accounts in my name only. Savings accounts, investment accounts, fixed deposits. The total was substantial. Let's just say I'd been preparing for this possibility for longer than I'd admitted even to myself. I transferred the remaining funds from the joint account into my primary personal account. The household account now had a balance of 500 rupees, enough to keep it open, but not enough to buy much more than a cup of coffee. Then, I logged into my credit card accounts. Arjun and Sudha were authorized users on 2 of my cards. I reported the cards as compromised and had them immediately canceled. New cards would be issued to me alone. Within an hour, I'd cut off their access to my money. Every credit line, every bank account, every financial resource they'd been using was now closed to them. I sat back and waited. It didn't take long. My phone lit up with calls again. I ignored them, but I watched the security feed with great interest. Arjun was standing in the kitchen, holding his phone, his face pale. He was trying to order food delivery, I guessed. His card was probably being declined. He tried again. Declined again. He winked at his phone as if it had betrayed him. Sudha appeared, holding her own phone. She was gesturing angrily. Probably her card was declined too. They were starting to understand. The money wasn't just gone from one account. It was gone from everything. Kamya rushed in, also holding her phone. All 3 of them stood there in my kitchen, in my house, holding useless pieces of plastic that no longer connected them to my wealth. I felt no guilt. I felt only the cold satisfaction of a balance sheet being corrected. They'd lived off me for 7 years. They'd treated me like an ATM with a pulse. Now the ATM was closed for business, permanently. The doorbell rang, on the security feed. I zoomed in. It was a courier, holding a large envelope. Arjun answered. The courier handed him the envelope and left. I knew what it was. The divorce petition. Mira had promised it would be delivered by Monday evening. She'd kept her word. I watched Arjun open it. I watched him read the first page, then the second. His hands were shaking. He sank onto the sofa, still reading. The petition was comprehensive. It outlined 7 years of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and exploitation. It detailed every rupee I'd spent on his failed businesses. It documented Sudha's hostile takeover of my home. It included statements from Priya and other staff about how I was treated. It demanded the divorce, full custody of all assets in my name, and compensation for the money Arjun had wasted on his ventures. Sudha grabbed the papers from Arjun's hands. She read them, her face getting redder with each page. Then she did something I'd never seen her do before. She started crying. Not delicate tears, but ugly, gasping sobs. She'd finally understood. The mansion she thought was her son's was mine. The lifestyle she thought was her right was built on my back. And now it was all ending. Arjun stood up and walked to the window. He stood there for a long time, just staring out at the city. I wondered what he was thinking. Was he feeling remorse? Was he regretting how he'd treated me? Or was he just calculating his losses? I'd never know. And I realized I didn't care. At 7 that evening, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maya? It's Priya. It was my housekeeper. Priya, hi. Are you okay? I'm fine, ma'am. I just wanted to tell you something. After you left, Mrs. Malhotra and Kavya madam called me. They asked me to testify against you. They said they'd pay me to say you were mentally unstable, that you were violent with them. My stomach tightened. What did you say? I said no, ma'am. I told them the truth. I told them you were the kindest person in that house and they treated you terribly. They got very angry. They fired me. Oh, Priya, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, ma'am. I was planning to quit anyway after watching what they did to you. But I wanted to warn you. They're going to lie. They're going to try to destroy your reputation. Thank you for telling me. And Priya, don't worry about the job. Call my lawyer. Meera Kapoor. I'll text you her number. Tell her everything you know. She'll hire you as a consultant for the case, and she'll pay you better than I did. Really, ma'am? Really. You stood up for the truth. That deserves to be rewarded. After I hung up, I immediately called Meera and told her about Priya's call. That's attempted witness tampering, Meera said. And it's perfect for our case. I'll add it to the file. This just keeps getting better. Better for the case, you mean? Better for you, Maya. Every mistake they make, every threat they issue, every lie they tell, it all adds to our evidence. They're digging their own graves. That night I had dinner at the hotel restaurant. I ordered tandoori prawns and garlic naan. Food I loved but rarely got to eat because Sudha claimed to be allergic to seafood. Another lie to control my life. As I ate, I thought about the last 7 years. I thought about all the small compromises that had added up to a complete loss of self. I thought about how I'd let them erase me piece by piece. But I also thought about tomorrow, about the life I was building, the life where my voice mattered, where my home was my sanctuary, where my success was celebrated instead of resented. I went back to my suite and opened my laptop. I logged into my security cameras one more time. The penthouse was dark except for a few lights. I could see Arjun sitting alone in the living room. Sudha and Kavya had probably gone to sleep. He looked small, lost. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered his silence at that dinner table. I remembered how he'd asked me to apologize for defending another human being. I remembered 7 years of him choosing his mother over his wife, choosing comfort over courage, choosing money over integrity. My sympathy evaporated. Tuesday morning brought a new development. I woke to a call from Meera at 7 a.m. Maya, we have a problem. Well, not really a problem, but something you should know. What is it? Arjun hired a lawyer, Mukesh Verma. He's known for playing dirty in divorce cases. He specializes in destroying women's reputations. I sat up in bed. Can he win? Against our evidence, no. But he can make it ugly. He can drag it out. He can try to embarrass you publicly. I need to know if you're prepared for that. I thought about it. I thought about my career, my reputation, my privacy. Then I thought about 7 more years of living in that house, being treated like I was worthless. Do whatever it takes, Meera. I'm not backing down. That's what I wanted to hear. There's one more thing. The 48 hours for the eviction expires tomorrow night. If they're not out by then, we can have the police remove them. Will they leave voluntarily? I doubt it. Sudha Malhotra doesn't strike me as someone who goes quietly. She was right. Sudha had never done anything quietly in her life. Tuesday afternoon, I received an email from Mukesh Verma, Arjun's lawyer. The subject line read, Settlement Proposal. I opened it with Meera on the phone. Dear Miss Sharma, it began. On behalf of my client, Mr. Arjun Malhotra, I'm reaching out to propose an amicable settlement that would benefit all parties. Malhotra is willing to grant you a divorce in exchange for the following: ownership of the Bandra West property, 50% of all joint assets, and spousal support of 5 lakh rupees per month for the next 10 years. In addition, Mrs. Sudha Malhotra and Mrs. Kavya Malhotra request a one-time settlement of 25 lakh rupees each for emotional distress. This generous offer would allow you to move forward with your life without the burden of a lengthy court battle. Please respond within 24 hours. I finished reading and there was silence on the line. Then Mira started laughing. It was a sharp, bitter laugh. The audacity! He wants your house, half your money, and 5 lakhs a month? Plus 50 lakhs for his family's emotional distress? After they've been living off you for 7 years? What do I do? You respond with one word, no. Actually, I'll respond. Let me draft something that's legally professional, but personally satisfying. 20 minutes later, Mira sent me her response to read before she sent it. Dear Mr. Verma, on behalf of my client, Ms. Maya Sharma, I must decline your settlement proposal. The property in question is in Ms. Sharma's name only and was purchased prior to marriage. There are no joint assets as Mr. Malhotra contributed no income to the marriage. Spousal support will not be provided as Mr. Malhotra is a healthy, able-bodied man capable of employment. As for the request from Mrs. Sudha Malhotra and Mrs. Kavya Malhotra, they are not parties to this marriage and have no legal standing. If Mr. Malhotra wishes to discuss reasonable terms, we are available. However, these demands are rejected in their entirety. The eviction notice remains in effect. Ms. Sharma expects the property to be vacated by 7 p.m. tomorrow as ordered by the court. Regards, Advocate Mira Kapoor. Send it, I said. Wednesday morning, the day the eviction was set to take effect, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. This was it. The day they had to leave or be removed by force. I logged into the security cameras at 6 a.m. The penthouse was quiet. No one seemed to be packing. No boxes, no suitcases. They were going to force this to the end. At 9 a.m., Nira called. The police are on standby. If they're not out by 7 tonight, officers will arrive at 7:15 to escort them out. Are you sure you want to do this? Having your in-laws physically removed by police will make headlines if anyone talks. I'm sure. They had 48 hours. They chose not to use them. I spent the day trying to work, but I couldn't concentrate. I kept checking the cameras. Around 3 p.m., I finally saw movement. Sudha and Kavya were pulling out suitcases from the storage room. They were packing, but they were moving slowly, deliberately. They weren't packing to leave. They were packing to make a scene. At 6:30, I received a call from a number I didn't know. I answered it. Maya? It's Arjun. My hand tightened around the phone. You're supposed to communicate through lawyers. I know, but I needed to talk to you directly. Please, just listen. Against my better judgment, I didn't hang up. I know I messed up, he said. His voice was thick like he'd been drinking. I know I let my mother control things. I know I should have stood up for you. But we can fix this. Come home. We'll ask Mother and Kavya to leave. It'll just be us. Like it used to be. Like it used to be. As if there had ever been an us that didn't include his family's interference. It's too late, Arjun. It's not. I love you. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. We're married. Marriage is supposed to last. For better or worse, remember? I lived the worst part for 7 years. You didn't. You lived off my money while your mother made my life hell. That's not a marriage. That's exploitation. Please, Maya, don't do this. I'll change. I promise I'll change. I felt something that surprised me. Not anger, not pain, just exhaustion. You've had 7 years to change, Arjun. 7 years. You didn't change because you didn't want to. And I don't want to wait another 7 years to see if you mean it this time. So that's it? You're just giving up on us? I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in 7 years, I'm choosing me. I hung up before he could respond. At 7 p.m. exactly, my phone rang. It was Mira. They're still there, she said. I just confirmed with the police. They're sending a unit now. I want to see it, I said. I'm coming. And, Maya, I don't think that's a good idea. I need to be there, Mira. I need to see this end. She sighed. Okay, but I'm meeting you there. Don't go in alone. I drove through Mumbai's evening traffic, my heart pounding. By the time I reached my building, 2 police vans were already parked outside. Neighbors were gathering, drawn by the commotion. I parked and walked toward the building. Mira was waiting in the lobby. "They're bringing them down now," she said. It got ugly. Sudha refused to leave. They had to threaten her with arrest. As she spoke, the elevator doors opened. 4 police officers emerged, followed by Sudha, Kavya, and Rohan. They each had a suitcase. That was it. 7 years of living in luxury, and they were leaving with 1 suitcase each. Sudha saw me first, her face contorted with pure hatred. "You," she spat, "you did this. You destroyed this family. You destroyed my son's life." I stood there, saying nothing. There was nothing left to say. "You'll regret this," Sudha continued, her voice rising. "You'll end up alone, bitter, and miserable. No one will want you. You're nothing without us, nothing." One of the police officers put a hand on her arm. "Ma'am, please keep moving." Kavya walked past me, her face tear-stained. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. "I hope all your money keeps you warm at night." Rohan wouldn't even look at me. He walked past, shoulders slumped, a teenager who'd finally learned that actions have consequences. And then Arjun appeared. He walked slowly, carrying 2 bags. He stopped in front of me. "I'll be staying at a hotel," he said, "as per the court order. But Maya, this isn't over. I'm fighting for our marriage. I'm fighting for us." "There is no us, Arjun. There never really was." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Then he walked past me and out the door. I watched them load into 2 taxis. I watched the cars pull away into Mumbai's chaotic traffic. I watched them disappear. And then I walked to the elevator. I rode it up to the 23rd floor. I used my key to open the door to my penthouse. My home. The place was a mess. They'd left it in disarray deliberately. One final act of spite. Drawers were open. Cushions were thrown on the floor. In the master bedroom, Sudha had left a note on the bed. "This will never really be yours." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then I walked through each room, opening windows, letting fresh air in. I turned on every light. I stood in the center of my living room and looked around. It was mine again, truly mine. I called Priya. "The house is empty. Can you come tomorrow and help me clean it?" "Of course, ma'am. And ma'am, I'm proud of you." Those words meant more than she could know. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. The next 2 months were a blur of legal proceedings, paperwork, and healing. The divorce moved forward. Arjun's lawyer tried every trick in the book. They claimed I was an unfit wife who prioritized career over family. They claimed I'd abandoned my marital duties. They even tried to argue that the penthouse should be considered joint property because Arjun had contributed emotionally to its maintenance. The judge wasn't impressed. When it came time for the financial disclosure, the truth came out in stark numbers. In 7 years of marriage, I had earned and saved 3 crore rupees. Arjun had earned 0. His 5 businesses had collectively lost 82 lakh rupees, all of which came from my accounts. The judge asked Arjun's lawyer a simple question. "What assets is your client bringing to this division?" The lawyer had no answer. The divorce was granted. The terms were simple. I kept everything that was in my name. Arjun got nothing except his personal belongings and the car he'd bought with his parents' money before we married. No spousal support. No property division. Nothing. Outside the courtroom, Arjun tried to approach me. Mira stepped between us. "My client has nothing to say to you, Mr. Malhotra." He looked at me over her shoulder. "Was it worth it, Maya? Was destroying our family worth it?" I met his eyes. "I didn't destroy our family, Arjun. There was no family to destroy. There was just me, funding an illusion. Now I'm funding my own life." That was the last time I saw him. 3 months after I left, I was sitting in my home office, the one that was mine again. The sun was setting over the Arabian Sea, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. My laptop was open, but I wasn't working. I was thinking. I thought about my father and what he told me. Never let anyone make you small. I'd let them make me small for 7 years, but I'd found my way back. My phone rang. It was an unknown number with a +33 country code. France. I answered. Hello? Is this Maya Sharma? Yes. Ms. Sharma, my name is Philippe Dubois. I'm calling from TechSecure International in Paris. We've been following your work in cybersecurity architecture. We have a position opening for Chief Technology Officer. We'd like to fly you to Paris to discuss it. I sat up straight. I'm sorry, how did you get my number? From Dr. Ananya Reddy. She worked with you 5 years ago. She highly recommended you. Are you interested? Was I interested? A fresh start in Paris. A role that matched my skills. A life where I could be Maya Sharma, the technology executive, not Maya, the disappointing daughter-in-law. Yes, I said. I'm very interested. 2 weeks later, I was on a flight to Paris. Business class, paid for by TechSecure. The interview went well. They offered me the position on the spot. The salary was double what I'd been making. The benefits included relocation assistance and a furnished apartment overlooking the Seine. I accepted. I returned to Mumbai to pack up my life. I put the penthouse on the market. It sold in 3 days for 40% more than I'd paid for it. The profit alone was more than Arjun would make in a decade. I donated my furniture to a women's shelter. I kept only what mattered: my father's photo, my awards, my books. Everything else was just weight. The day before I left Mumbai, I did something unexpected. I called Priya and offered her a choice. Come to Paris with me. I need someone I trust. I'll pay for your relocation, get you a proper work visa, and triple your salary, or if you prefer, I'll give you 6 months severance so you can find something better here. She chose Paris. We landed in Paris on a Tuesday morning. The city was beautiful, all golden light and cobblestone streets. My apartment was in the Marais district, all tall windows and original hardwood floors. It was elegant. It was quiet. It was mine. I stood at the window that first morning, drinking café au lait and looking out at the city. My phone buzzed. A text from Mira. Heard you're in Paris. Proud of you, my friend. You deserved better than what they gave you. Now go build the life you deserve. I smiled and typed back, already building it. Over the next year, I built a life I couldn't have imagined. I thrived at TechSecure. I led a team of 40 engineers. I developed security protocols that were implemented across Europe. I spoke at conferences. I was interviewed for technology magazines. But more than professional success, I found something else. Peace. I learned French. I discovered small cafes where I could sit for hours with a book. I made friends, real friends who knew me as Maya, not as someone's wife or daughter-in-law. I traveled on weekends to Barcelona and Amsterdam and Prague. I filled my life with beauty and experiences instead of trying to fill the emptiness of being unappreciated. One evening, about 18 months after I'd left Mumbai, I was having dinner at a bistro near my apartment when my phone rang. It was a Mumbai number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? I said. Maya, it's Kavya, she replied. I froze. I hadn't heard from anyone in Arjun's family since the divorce. What do you want, Kavya? I asked. I needed to talk to you. Is that okay? Oh, I'm listening. I'm calling to apologize. I know it's late. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need to say it. We were wrong. I was wrong. The way we treated you, it was terrible. You gave us everything and we gave you nothing but pain. I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say. Strom. After you left, Kavya continued, everything fell apart. Mother had to move in with her sister. She hates it there. Arjun is working as a junior manager at a tech firm. He hates his boss. He's living in a 1-bedroom flat in Andheri. And me, I got a job at a call center. It's humbling, Maya. It's really humbling. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know that we understand now. We understand what you gave us and what we threw away. And I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Part 2. I looked out the window at the Parisian street, at the people walking by living their lives. Thank you for the apology, Kavya. I appreciate it, I do, but I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was. I don't carry anger anymore. But I don't have space in my life for people who hurt me, even if they're sorry. I forgive you, but I don't want you in my life. Strong Part 3. I understand, she said quietly. I just wanted you to know, and Maya, for what it's worth, you look happy. I saw your interview in that tech magazine. You were glowing. I'm glad you found yourself again. Strong Part T. Goodbye, Kavya. Goodbye, Maya. Take care. Strong Part T. I hung up and sat there for a moment. A year ago, that call would have wrecked me. It would have brought up all the pain. But now it just felt like a closing chapter, a final punctuation mark on a story I'd already moved past. The waiter brought my dinner, coco vin with roasted vegetables. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. Around me, the bistro hummed with conversation and laughter. Paris in spring is magical. The city feels alive, full of possibility. I thought about the last 2 years. I thought about the woman I'd been, shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were too small for her. And I thought about the woman I'd become, someone who took up space unapologetically, someone who knew her worth. People ask me sometimes if I regret the marriage, if I wish I'd never met Arjun. The truth is complicated. I don't regret it because it taught me something essential. It taught me that you can't love someone into respecting you. You can't sacrifice enough to earn basic human dignity, and you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Most importantly, it taught me that walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes saving yourself is the only salvation available. After dinner, I walked home through the narrow streets of the Marais. The evening was cool. The sky was turning purple. I passed a small gallery and stopped to look at the paintings in the window. Bold, bright colors, abstract forms, art that took up space without apology. I smiled. When I got home, I made myself tea and sat on my small balcony. From here, I could see the lights of Paris spread out before me. Millions of windows lit up against the night. Each one a life, a story, a journey. My journey had taken me from feeling like a spare part to becoming the lead in my own story. It had taken me from a house where I was invisible to a city where I was seen. It had taken me from funding other people's dreams to building my own. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. There was one I'd taken that morning, a selfie in front of the Eiffel Tower. I was smiling, genuinely smiling. My eyes were bright. I looked free. I posted it on social media with a simple caption. Sometimes the best view comes after the hardest climb. Within minutes, comments started appearing. Friends from Paris congratulating me. Former colleagues from Mumbai expressing support. Even a few messages from women I didn't know, thanking me for sharing my story, telling me I'd inspired them to leave their own toxic situations. One message stood out. It was from Priya. Ma'am, thank you for bringing me with you. Thank you for showing me that women can save themselves. My daughter asks about you every day. She wants to be like you when she grows up. I felt tears prick my eyes. Good tears, healing tears. I typed back, tell her she can be better than me. Tell her she never has to shrink herself in the first place. As the night deepened and Paris settled into its evening rhythm, I sat there thinking about the millions of women who live the life I left behind. Women who fund families that don't value them. Women who shrink themselves to fit into spaces that should expand for them. Women who believe that sacrifice is love and that suffering is duty. I wanted to tell them what I learned. That you are not selfish for wanting respect. You are not cruel for demanding dignity. You are not ungrateful for expecting the people you support to actually support you back. I wanted to tell them that leaving doesn't make you a failure. Staying in a situation that destroys you, that makes you a failure to yourself, and you owe yourself more than that. You owe yourself everything. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong. so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. 6 months later, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a publisher in Mumbai. They'd read about my story through one of those viral social media posts. They wanted me to write a book. Not a revenge story, they said, but a guide for women on reclaiming their financial and personal power. I thought about it for a week. Then I said yes. I spent my evenings and weekends writing. I wrote about financial literacy, about how to protect your assets, about recognizing emotional abuse, about building the courage to leave. I wrote about the legal steps, the emotional journey, the practical logistics of starting over. But mostly, I wrote about reclaiming yourself, about remembering who you were before people told you who to be, about finding your voice after years of being told to be quiet. The book was published 8 months later. It was called The Price of Peace, A Woman's Guide to Financial Freedom and Emotional Liberation. It became a bestseller in India within 3 weeks. Women's groups invited me to speak. Universities asked me to lecture. News channels wanted interviews. At first, I was hesitant. I'd left India to escape that life, not to revisit it publicly. But Mira convinced me otherwise. Maya, your story isn't just yours anymore, she told me on a video call. It belongs to every woman who's lived it. Share it. Help them. So I did. I flew back to Mumbai for a book tour. The first event was at a bookstore in Bandra, not far from where my penthouse had been. The room was packed, over 300 women, young and old, sitting on chairs and on the floor, standing against walls. I stood at the podium and looked at them. I saw myself in their faces, the weariness, the hope, the fear, the strength they didn't know they had yet. I'm Maya Sharma, I began. And 12 years ago, I thought my career was my biggest achievement. I was wrong. My biggest achievement is standing here today, free. Not because I'm single or because I'm successful, but because I finally understand that my life belongs to me, not to a husband, not to a family, to me. The room was silent. For years, I believed that love meant sacrifice, that being a good wife meant making myself smaller so others could be bigger, that respect was earned through silence and compliance. I was wrong about all of it. I paused, looking at the faces staring back at me. Respect is not earned, it's required. It's the baseline of any healthy relationship. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. Real love celebrates who you are. And sacrifice, real sacrifice, is reciprocal. It's not one person giving everything while others take everything. I saw women nodding. I saw tears on some faces. I'm not here to tell you to leave your marriages or abandon your families. I'm here to tell you that you have options. You have power. You have worth, regardless of whether the people around you recognize it. And if you're in a situation where you're funding someone else's life while your own life withers, you have permission to change that. You have permission to choose yourself. The applause was thunderous. After the talk, women lined up to speak to me. They shared their stories, their pain, their fears, their small acts of rebellion. One woman, maybe 60 years old, held my hand and whispered, "I've been married for 35 years. I've never had my own bank account. Tomorrow, I'm opening one. Thank you." Another, younger, maybe 25, said, "I was about to marry someone my parents chose. Someone like your husband. Your book made me realize I can say no. I said no yesterday. My parents aren't speaking to me, but I'm free." Each story was a variation of the same theme. Women who'd been taught to be small, learning to take up space. Women who'd been taught to serve, learning to save themselves. The book tour lasted 3 weeks. I traveled to Delhi, Bangalore, Kolkata, Hyderabad. Everywhere the response was the same. Packed rooms, grateful faces. Women finding their courage. On the last day, I was at a cafe in Bangalore when I saw them. Arjun and Sudha. They were sitting at a corner table, having coffee. Sudha saw me first. Her face hardened. She said something to Arjun. He turned, and our eyes met. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the cafe. Then he stood up and walked over to me. "Maya," he said, "can we talk?" I looked at him. He'd aged. His hair was graying. He looked tired, worn down by life in a way he never had when he was living off me. "What do you want to talk about, Arjun?" "I read your book." "And?" "You made me look like a villain." "I considered that." "I told the truth." "If the truth makes you look like a villain, maybe you should examine your actions, not my words." He flinched. "I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You were right about me. About us. I was weak. I let my mother control our marriage. I used you. I see that now. Thank you for saying that. Is there any chance, any at all, that we could start over? Not as we were, but as better versions of ourselves." I looked at this man I'd once loved. I felt no anger toward him anymore. But I felt no love either. Just a distant zone of pity for someone who still didn't quite understand what he'd lost or why he'd lost it. "No, Arjun, there's no chance. Not because I haven't forgiven you, but because I like who I am without you. I like my life. I like my peace. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Certainly not for the hope that you might change." He nodded slowly. "You look happy." "I am happy." "Good, that's good. I want you to be happy, Maya, even if it's without me. Thank you." He walked back to his table. I watched him sit down next to his mother. She said something to him, probably something critical about me. He just shook his head, looking defeated. I paid for my coffee and left. As I walked out into the Bangalore sunshine, I felt lighter. That encounter, which I dreaded for 2 years, had come and gone. And I'd survived it. More than survived, I'd thrived through it. I returned to Paris the next day. My apartment greeted me like an old friend, familiar and welcoming. I made tea and sat on my balcony, looking out at my adopted city. My phone buzzed. A message from the publisher. "The book just hit #1 on the national bestseller list. Congratulations, Maya. You're changing lives." I smiled. Maybe I was, but more importantly, I'd changed my own life. I'd taken the broken pieces of who I'd been and built someone stronger, someone whole, someone free. I thought about the woman I was 3 years ago, sitting in a dining room, being told to shut up, being called a spare part. I thought about how small I'd felt, how worthless. And I thought about who I was now. A CTO at a major tech firm, a published author, a speaker inspiring thousands, a woman who'd learned that the only approval she needed was her own. The journey from there to here hadn't been easy. There were nights I'd cried myself to sleep. There were moments I doubted my decisions. There were times I'd felt the crushing weight of loneliness and wondered if I'd made a mistake. But those moments passed, and what remained was this: a life built on my terms, with my values, for my happiness. A life where I was the author, not a supporting character. A life where I took up space without apologizing. People often say that women who leave difficult marriages are brave, but I don't think it's about bravery. I think it's about reaching a point where staying becomes more terrifying than leaving. I think it's about waking up one day and realizing that you've been dying slowly, and that choosing to live, really live, is the only option left. So I chose life. My life. And it was the best decision I ever made. As the sun set over Paris, turning the sky shades of pink and gold, I raised my teacup in a silent toast. To the woman I was, who survived. To the woman I am, who thrives. And to every woman out there still finding her courage. Your life is yours. Your voice matters. Your worth is not determined by whether other people recognize it. You are not a spare part in anyone's story. You are the main character in your own, and you deserve a story worth living. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you.